Kalara stood before the airlock, her slender fingers adjusting the collar of her formal science uniform one last time. The blue-skinned alien took a deep breath, filling her triple-lobed lungs with the carefully filtered air of the docking bay. Today marked her first assignment among humans, and the thought made her heart flutter with both excitement and fear. "You are a representative of all Viridians," her supervisor had told her before she left their homeworld. "Remember our ways. Observe, but do not adopt." A soft hiss announced the opening of the airlock, and Kalara straightened her posture. The doors slid apart to reveal a human male waiting on the other side. He was tall by Viridian standards, with light brown hair and a smile that seemed too wide, too casual for such an official meeting. "Welcome aboard the U.S. Horizon. I'm Lieutenant Jack Miller," he said, extending his hand. Kalara stared at the offered hand. She had studied human greeting customs, but experiencing one in person was different. Carefully, she reached out and allowed her 3 fingers to be enveloped by his 5. "I am Xenobiologist Kalara, 3rd rank," she replied formally. "I am honored to serve as cultural liaison between our species." Jack's smile grew even wider. "Great to meet you, Kalara. No need for all the formality. We're pretty relaxed around here." Kalara blinked her large violet eyes. "Relaxed? But this is a military vessel." Jack laughed. "Yeah, but we're not robots. Come on, I'll show you to your quarters and then give you a tour. The captain wants to meet you at dinner." As they walked through the corridors of the human ship, Kalara observed everything with keen interest. Humans moved about with seemingly little regard for rank or position. They talked freely, laughed loudly, and occasionally touched each other's shoulders or arms. On Viridian ships, crew members maintained precise distances and spoke only when necessary. "Your species is very," she searched for the right word, "physical with each other." Jack nodded. "Yeah, we're social creatures. Most of us like connection." "And your commanding officers permit this?" Kalara asked. "Permit what?" "This." She gestured vaguely at 2 crew members laughing together. "Familiarity." Jack seemed puzzled. "It builds crew morale. Happy crew, better performance." They reached her quarters, and Jack showed her how to use the door panel and environmental controls. The room was larger than Kalara had expected, with colorful decorations that seemed unnecessary. "Mess hall is on deck 3. My quarters are just down the hall if you need anything," Jack said. "Oh, and we're having a little welcome party for you tonight. Nothing fancy, just some drinks and snacks." "A party? For me?" Kalara was shocked. On Viridian, parties were rare formal affairs reserved for major accomplishments or bonding ceremonies. "Sure. It's a great way for you to meet everyone," Jack replied. "I think you'll really hit it off with Lisa Rodriguez from engineering. She's fascinated by xenobiology too." Kalara nodded politely, though inwardly she felt overwhelmed. Viridians valued careful, structured relationships. They chose friends based on compatibility assessments and mates through genetic matching. The idea of simply hitting it off with someone was foreign to her. "I will attend," she said finally. After Jack left, Kalara sat on the edge of her bed, processing everything. Humans were nothing like what she had expected from her training. They seemed to form connections easily, without the careful consideration Viridians practiced. Most troubling was their apparent disregard for proper distance. On Viridian, physical proximity was reserved for one's chosen mate. Yet humans touched casually, stood close to one another, and seemed comfortable with physical contact. "Remember our ways," her supervisor had warned. Kalara tried to focus on her mission, to study humans, not become like them. But as she unpacked her belongings, she couldn't help but feel a strange curiosity about these emotional, physical beings and their chaotic social structures. Perhaps this assignment would be more challenging than she had anticipated. The welcome party was louder than anything Kalara had ever experienced. Humans filled the recreation room, talking in overlapping voices, laughing, and standing much too close to each other. Music played from hidden speakers. adding to the chaos. Clara stood near the wall, clutching her drink and trying not to look as uncomfortable as she felt. "First time at a human party?" a friendly voice asked. Clara turned to see a human female with dark curly hair and warm brown eyes. Her uniform indicated she worked in communications. "Yes," Clara admitted. "Viridian gatherings are more structured." The woman smiled. "I'm Samantha Wright, communications officer. Everyone calls me Sam." "I am xenobiologist Clara, third rank." "Just Clara is fine," Sam said with a laugh. "We don't really use ranks at parties." Clara nodded, trying to adapt. "Just Clara." Then, Sam leaned against the wall beside her. "So what do you think of humans so far?" "You are very different from what I expected," Clara said carefully. "The way you interact with each other is unusual to me." "How so?" Clara watched as a male and female human on the other side of the room kissed briefly before separating to talk to different people. "That," she pointed discreetly. "On my world, public displays of affection are reserved for bonded mates only." "Oh, Dan and Kelly." Sam followed her gaze. "They're dating, but not married." "Dating." Clara repeated the unfamiliar term. "You know, seeing each other romantically before deciding if they want to commit long-term." Clara's violet eyes widened. "You choose mates without genetic matching. Based on feelings." Sam laughed. "Of course. How else would you do it?" For the next hour, Sam explained human relationships to an increasingly bewildered Clara. Dating, breakups, second chances, polyamory, open relationships. Each concept seemed more shocking than the last. "So humans may have multiple romantic partners throughout their lives?" Clara asked, trying to understand. "Sure, some at the same time, with everyone's knowledge and consent. Others sequentially. It depends on the person." Clara felt her head spinning, and not from the single drink she barely touched. This contradicted everything she knew. Viridians bonded for life with a single mate, chosen through careful genetic and personality analysis. The bond was supposedly biological, not just cultural, a literal chemical connection that made other partnerships impossible. "But what about biological compatibility?" she asked. "Viridians produce bonding hormones specific to our chosen mate." Sam shrugged. "Humans get attached too, but we can also form new attachments. It's not always easy, but it's possible." Across the room, Clara spotted Jack chatting with a female human. When he saw Clara looking, he waved her over. Reluctantly, she approached. "Clara, meet Lisa Rodriguez from engineering," Jack said cheerfully. "Lisa, this is Clara, our Viridian xenobiologist." Lisa had copper-colored skin and bright green eyes that lit up when she smiled. "Jack's been telling me about your research. I'd love to hear more about Viridian biology sometime." "I would be pleased to share information," Clara said formally, though she found herself unusually interested in this human's friendly expression. As the three of them talked, Clara noticed something disturbing. She felt equally drawn to both Jack and Lisa. Their smiles, their voices, the way they gestured when explaining things. According to everything she had been taught, this was impossible. Viridians could only form attraction to one potential mate. That night in her quarters, Clara recorded her observations in her personal log. "Human relationships appear chaotic and emotionally driven," she noted. "Yet they function effectively. Most troubling is my own response. I find myself interested in more than one human. This contradicts our biological understanding of Viridian mating. Either my education is incomplete, or I am experiencing some unknown effect of prolonged human contact." She paused the recording, disturbed by the implications. If Viridians could feel attraction to multiple people, what else about her species' rigid social structure might be based on cultural rules rather than biological necessities? Over the next 2 weeks, Clara tried to avoid both Jack and Lisa. She focused on her work, analyzing human biological samples and writing detailed reports. But avoidance proved difficult on a ship the size of the Horizon. Jack brought her meals when she worked late. Lisa invited her to engineering to see how humans adapted technology for different species. Each interaction left Kalara feeling both happy and guilty. "This is a sickness," she whispered to herself one night, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her normally blue skin had developed a slight purple tint around her neck, a viridian sign of emotional distress. According to everything she had been taught, viridians could only form a pre-mating attachment to one person, a biological fact as certain as having 3 fingers or violet eyes. Yet here she was, drawn to 2 different humans. When she began losing sleep, Dr. Alan Patel, the ship's chief medical officer, noticed her declining health. "You look exhausted," he said when she visited sickbay for her weekly comparative biology meeting. "Is everything all right?" "I am functioning adequately," Kalara replied stiffly. Dr. Patel crossed his arms. "I've been a doctor for 20 years. I know when someone isn't well, human or otherwise." Kalara hesitated. Discussing personal matters was not the viridian way, but neither was feeling attraction to 2 people. "I believe I may be experiencing a medical abnormality," she admitted finally. "It may be caused by prolonged exposure to human biochemistry." Dr. Patel listened carefully as she explained her symptoms, describing her confusing feelings while carefully avoiding mentioning Jack and Lisa's names. "I see," he said when she finished. "Would you allow me to run some tests? Compare your current biochemistry with your baseline readings from when you came aboard." Kalara agreed, hoping for a simple explanation. Perhaps human pheromones were affecting her body chemistry in unexpected ways. Dr. Patel took blood samples and neural readings, promising results the next day. When Kalara returned to sickbay, Dr. Patel looked excited. "I found something fascinating," he said, showing her a display of complex molecules. "Your bonding hormones. The ones your people claim can only respond to one specific genetic match. They're actually quite adaptable." "That is impossible," Kalara said, staring at the screen. "Viridian science has established." "Viridian science may have established what it wanted to find," Dr. Patel interrupted gently. "Look at these neural patterns. Your brain is forming attachment pathways to more than one person. It's doing it naturally, without stress markers. This isn't a malfunction." Kalara sat down, legs suddenly weak. "Are you suggesting our entire understanding of viridian biology is wrong?" "Not wrong. Perhaps incomplete, or deliberately limited." Dr. Patel sat beside her. "History is full of examples where biology was used to justify cultural restrictions. Humans once believed many false things about our own biology based on cultural biases. But why would our scientists perpetuate such a thing?" Kalara whispered. "Control, perhaps. A society where everyone has exactly one predetermined mate is more orderly than one where people choose freely." Dr. Patel shrugged. "I'm not an expert on viridian culture, but these readings are clear. Your biology allows for multiple attachments." Kalara left sickbay in a daze, her world tilting on its axis. If her people could form bonds with multiple partners, what did that mean for viridian society? For her, the implications were enormous. That evening, she received a message from her home government. Her routine reports had been flagged for concerning content. She was ordered to return to Viridia immediately for health assessment and cultural realignment. They knew. Somehow, they knew she was questioning the fundamental truths of Viridian society, and they wanted to stop her before she discovered more. Kalara paced her quarters, the message from Viridia playing over and over in her mind. Return immediately for health assessment and cultural realignment. Everyone knew what cultural realignment meant. Mental reprogramming to eliminate undesirable thoughts. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. She opened the door to find both Jack and Lisa standing outside. "We haven't seen you at meals for 3 days," Jack said, concerned. "Are you okay?" Lisa added, "We've been worried." Kalara hesitated, then stepped aside to let them enter. She had to tell someone. Maybe these humans who live so freely could help her understand what to do. "My government has ordered me to return to Viridia," she said, showing them the message. They suspect I am becoming too influenced by human ways. Jack frowned. Can they force you to return? Yes, I am a government scientist. My choices are to return willingly or be labeled a deserter. And what happens during this cultural realignment? Lisa asked, her green eyes filled with concern. Clara looked away. They will use neural recalibration to remove thoughts that contradict Viridian values. I will forget certain feelings. That's horrible, Lisa exclaimed. It's brainwashing. Jack sat down, thinking, what if we could prove that Viridian biology doesn't work the way your government claims? Would that help? Clara sighed. They would deny it. Our scientists have maintained for generations that Viridians can only bond with one mate. But Dr. Petal found evidence that contradicts this, Lisa said. Could we access historical Viridian records? Maybe find proof that things were different before. Clara's eyes widened. The ancient archives. They contain records from before the Great Harmony, when our current government took power. But they're restricted. I bet I could access them, Lisa said with a small smile. If you give me access to your Viridian network credentials, I could create a secure pathway. That would be illegal, Clara said, but hope flickered inside her. So is forcing people to think a certain way, Jack countered. You deserve the truth about your own biology. That night, the three of them gathered in Lisa's quarters. Using Clara's credentials and her engineering skills, Lisa bypassed the security systems protecting the ancient archives. Historical images and texts appeared on the screen, written in Old Viridian. I can translate, Clara said, leaning forward eagerly. She began reading aloud from documents that hadn't been seen in centuries. What they discovered shocked her to her core. Before the Great Harmony 500 years ago, Viridians had lived in various relationship structures. Some had single partners, others had multiple companions. There were images of Viridian family groups with several adults raising children together. Look at this, Jack pointed to an official document. The Proclamation of Biological Truth, dated exactly when the Great Harmony began. Clara translated the flowery language. It says, to create perfect order, we declare that all Viridians shall now bond with only one mate, carefully selected for genetic perfection. Those unable to adapt will receive neural assistance. Neural assistance? Lisa asked. Mind control, Clara whispered. They altered our biology through selective breeding and neural manipulation. They engineered the single-mate response over generations until it became the norm. Jack put a gentle hand on her shoulder. Clara, this means your government has been lying for centuries. Your people aren't biologically restricted to one mate. It was a choice made by those in power for control. Clara felt as if her entire world had collapsed. Everything she believed about her species, about herself, was built on carefully constructed lies. I have to tell others, she said finally. My people deserve to know the truth. That could be dangerous, Lisa warned. Yes, Clara agreed, but some truths are worth the risk. The next morning, Clara requested an urgent meeting with Captain Susan Taylor. In the captain's office, Clara explained everything. Dr. Patel's findings, the ancient archives, and the Viridian government's deception. So you believe your government has been controlling your people through biological manipulation and lies? Captain Taylor asked, her gray eyes serious. Yes, Captain. For 500 years, Clara replied. And now they want me to return for realignment because I've discovered the truth. Captain Taylor leaned back in her chair. What would you like me to do, Clara? I request asylum aboard the Horizon. I cannot return to Viridia now. The captain nodded slowly. I'll grant temporary protection while we consult with Galactic Confederation legal experts. This is a delicate diplomatic situation. Before the day ended, a Viridian warship appeared near the horizon. Its commander, Senior Official Darius, demanded Clara's immediate transfer. Scientist Clara is experiencing a dangerous mental condition, Darius stated during a video communication with Captain Taylor. We must return her home for treatment. Kalara has requested asylum under Confederation protection laws. Captain Taylor replied calmly. Until her case is reviewed, she remains under my protection. Darris's face hardened. This is a Viridian matter. Your interference violates our sovereignty. With respect, abuse of power is a Confederation matter, Captain Taylor countered, especially when it involves forced neural manipulation. The communication ended with thinly veiled threats from Darris about serious consequences. Word of the standoff spread quickly through the ship. Jack and Lisa took turns staying with Kalara, whose quarters were now guarded by security officers. What if other Viridians learned the truth? Jack suggested during dinner in Kalara's room. Your government couldn't recalibrate everyone. Lisa nodded enthusiastically. We could send the archive evidence to other Viridians in the Confederation. That might work, Kalara said. There are 17 Viridian scientists serving on various Confederation vessels. If they saw the evidence, they spent hours preparing a careful message with copies of the ancient archives and Dr. Patel's medical findings. Lisa helped encrypt it to bypass Viridian sensors. Ready? She asked, finger hovering over the send button. Kalara took a deep breath. Ready. The message went out to every Viridian serving off-world. 3 tense days passed. The Viridian warship remained positioned near the horizon, a constant reminder of the danger. Then reports began coming in from across the Confederation. Other Viridians were questioning their government, requesting their own medical tests, demanding answers. On the 4th day, a Galactic Confederation diplomatic vessel arrived. The Horizon received a transmission from High Mediator Olana, the Confederation's top diplomatic officer. This situation has escalated beyond a simple asylum case, Mediator Olana explained during a meeting with Captain Taylor, Kalara, and senior official Darris. We've received formal complaints from 23 Viridians in Confederation service, all alleging the same government deception. Darris looked furious. These are internal Viridian matters. The Confederation has no right. The Confederation Charter, which Viridia signed, explicitly prohibits forced mental manipulation. Mediator Olana interrupted. We take these allegations seriously. They are not allegations. They are facts, Kalara said firmly. She presented the evidence they had gathered. The historical documents, Dr. Patel's medical analysis, testimonies from other Viridians who had undergone similar tests. We hereby request a full Confederation investigation, Captain Taylor added, and continued protection for Kalara and any other Viridians who fear retaliation. Mediator Olana nodded. Granted. Senior official Darris, the Confederation Council will expect Viridian cooperation in this investigation. Darris stood abruptly. Viridia will remember who its real enemies are. He glared at Kalara, especially those who betray their own kind for alien ideas. As he stormed out, Kalara felt both fear and determination. There was no going back now. A battle for the truth about her species had begun, and humans stood firmly by her side. News of the Viridian controversy spread across the Confederation like wildfire. Every major news channel featured debates about cultural interference, biological manipulation, and the rights of species to maintain their traditions. On the horizon, Kalara found herself at the center of a movement she never intended to start. Messages poured in from Viridians throughout Confederation space, some supportive, others hateful. Many shared stories of feeling broken when they experienced attraction to multiple people, believing themselves defective rather than simply normal. I never expected this, Kalara told Jack and Lisa as they reviewed the latest messages in the ship's lounge. So many of my people have suffered silently. Revolutions often start with one person asking questions, Jack said. The Confederation investigation moved quickly. Scientists from multiple species examined Dr. Patel's findings, comparing them with medical data from other Viridians who had volunteered for testing. The evidence mounted that Viridian biology was indeed capable of forming bonds with multiple partners. On Viridia itself, protests broke out in major cities. Young Viridians especially demanded answers from their government, carrying signs reading biological truth and freedom to choose. Government forces responded with arrests and threats of mass recalibration. 2 weeks after the standoff began, the Confederation Council called a special hearing. Representatives from all member species would attend to discuss the Viridian situation. Kalara was asked to testify. "I'm afraid," she admitted to Lisa the night before the hearing. They sat close together in Kalara's quarters, shoulders touching. "You have every right to be," Lisa said, taking Kalara's 3-fingered hand. "But you won't be alone. The captain is sending a delegation from the horizon to support you." "What if I'm making a mistake? What if disrupting our traditions ruins Viridian society?" Lisa squeezed her hand gently. "Do you really believe society is better when built on lies? When people are forced to deny their true nature?" Kalara thought about it. "No, but change is scary." "The scariest things are often the most important," Lisa said. The Confederation Council chamber was enormous, with high ceilings and seats for over 200 representatives from across the galaxy. Kalara felt tiny as she took her place at the speaker's podium. In the audience, she spotted Captain Taylor, Jack, Lisa, and Dr. Petal, her human friends who had helped her discover the truth. The Viridian delegation sat stone-faced, led by Supreme Leader Vox, who rarely left Viridia. His presence showed how seriously they took this threat to their control. "Scientist Kalara," the council chairperson began, "please present your testimony." Taking a deep breath, Kalara spoke clearly. "Honored representatives, I come before you today not as a revolutionary, but as a scientist seeking truth. For 500 years, my government has claimed that Viridians can only form a mating bond with one carefully selected partner. They have built our entire social structure on this biological fact. But it is not a fact. It is a lie." She presented the evidence, the historical documents showing diverse relationship structures before the Great Harmony, the medical scans revealing Viridians' biological capacity for multiple attachments, testimonies from others who had experienced what she had. "My government calls this human contamination," she continued. "They blame humans for introducing dangerous ideas. But humans did not change Viridian biology. They simply helped me discover what was already there, what has always been there, hidden beneath centuries of control and manipulation." Supreme Leader Vox stood abruptly. "This is outrageous. We have maintained peace and order on Viridia for 5 centuries. Would you destroy that for some human concept of freedom?" Kalara met his gaze steadily. "Is it truly peace when it's built on altering minds? Is it order when it requires lying to an entire species about their own nature?" The council chamber erupted with voices, some supporting Kalara, others the Viridian government. The revolution of ideas had begun, and there would be no going back. After 3 days of heated debate, the Confederation Council reached a decision. They would send a scientific team to Viridia to conduct a planet-wide study of Viridian biology. The team would include experts from multiple species, including humans. Most importantly, their findings would be made public to all Viridians. Supreme Leader Vox objected strongly but could not refuse without violating Confederation membership agreements. He returned to Viridia, promising that traditional values would prevail against alien corruption. "What happens now?" Kalara asked Captain Taylor when the hearing ended. "Now we gather evidence no one can ignore," the captain replied. "Dr. Patil will join the scientific team. The Horizon will transport them to Viridia." "And me?" Kalara asked nervously. Captain Taylor smiled. "You'll be our cultural liaison for the mission. Your knowledge is essential, and the Council has granted you special diplomatic protection." Returning to Viridia filled Kalara with both excitement and fear. From orbit, her blue-green homeworld looked peaceful, but she knew turmoil lay beneath the surface. Government broadcasts warned citizens about contaminated Viridians returning with dangerous ideas. Yet in many cities, people gathered in secret to discuss the possibility of relationship freedom. The scientific team established labs in 5 major cities. For 6 weeks, They examined thousands of volunteer Viridians, studying their neurochemistry, hormonal responses, and bonding patterns. Kalara worked closely with Dr. Patel, explaining Viridian biology and helping interpret results. Jack and Lisa took shore leave to visit the capital city, meeting Kalara whenever possible. One evening, as they walked through a public garden, a group of young Viridians approached them. "Are you the humans who helped scientist Kalara?" one asked boldly. Kalara tensed, fearing trouble, but the young Viridian continued, "Thank you. Many of us have felt wrong our whole lives. Now we know we aren't broken." Similar encounters happened throughout their stay. For every angry traditionalist who glared at them, many more Viridians quietly expressed support. When the scientific study concluded, the results were undeniable. Viridian biology showed clear evidence of capacity for multiple bonds. Historical genetic analysis revealed deliberate selection for certain traits that strengthened single-partner responses, but the basic biology remained flexible. Most stunning of all, the team discovered secret government labs where cultural realignment had been perfected. Records showed thousands of Viridians who had been adjusted when they displayed unwanted romantic behaviors. The public release of these findings shook Viridian society to its core. Government officials attempted to discredit the study, but too many Viridians had participated. They knew the truth now. Riots broke out in the capital. Supreme Leader Vox appeared on emergency broadcasts, declaring a cultural emergency and blaming human interference. He ordered the arrest of all humans on Viridia, including the scientific team. "We need to leave now," Captain Taylor told her crew. "The situation is deteriorating." "I can't go," Kalara said. "My people need me here, especially now." Jack and Lisa exchanged worried looks. "It's not safe," Jack argued. "No revolution is safe," Kalara replied. "But I helped start this. I must see it through." That night, as the Horizon prepared for emergency departure, a group of reform-minded Viridian officials contacted Kalara. They had formed a shadow government and needed her help. "The old system is crumbling," their leader explained. "We need someone who understands both traditional Viridian values and the possibility of change. Will you help us build a new way?" Kalara looked at Jack and Lisa, these humans who had changed her life so completely. "I will stay on Viridia," she decided. "But I ask that these two humans remain as advisors. We will need their perspective." The official nodded. "The humans who helped free our minds will always be welcome among us." As dawn broke over the capital, Viridians filled the streets, demanding change. A new era was beginning, with Kalara at its heart. 1 year later, Kalara stood at the window of her office in the new government building, watching Viridians move freely through the capital city streets. So much had changed in 12 months. The revolution had been difficult, but remarkably peaceful. When faced with overwhelming evidence and public demand, most government officials had surrendered power rather than fight. Supreme Leader Vox and a few loyalists had fled to a remote colony, where they still claimed to be the true Viridia. Kalara turned as the door opened. Jack and Lisa entered, each carrying documents for the afternoon's council meeting. "Ready for the big announcement?" Jack asked, setting down his tablet. Kalara nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." Today, the Transitional Council would reveal the results of the planet-wide referendum on relationship structures. For months, educational programs had explained the biological truth to all Viridians, and now the people had voted on how to reshape their society. No matter what they chose, you've given them something precious. The right to decide for themselves, Lisa said, squeezing Kalara's hand. The three of them walked together to the Grand Hall, where Viridians from across the planet had gathered. Many other species were present too, including a delegation from the Horizon led by Captain Taylor. As chairperson of the Transitional Council, Kalara took her place at the podium. Looking out at the crowd, she remembered the frightened xenobiologist who had first boarded a human ship just over a year ago, believing she could only ever love one person in her entire life. "My fellow Viridians," she began, Today marks the end of our first year of freedom. Freedom to know ourselves truly. Freedom to choose our own paths. Today, I share the results of our planetary referendum. The hall fell silent as Kalara continued. By a margin of 68%, our people have chosen to establish a society where each individual may select their own relationship structure. Those who wish to maintain the traditional single-mate bond may do so. Those who wish to explore multiple connections may do so. All will be respected equally under Viridian law. Cheers erupted throughout the hall. Even many traditionalists applauded. They had fought not against change itself, but against having no voice in the process. Additionally, Kalara continued when the noise subsided. All neural recalibration facilities have been permanently closed. The science that was once used to control will now be used to heal those damaged by forced realignment. After the ceremony, Kalara, Jack, and Lisa walked in the garden behind a government building. Their relationship had blossomed over the past year, becoming something new. Neither fully human nor fully Viridian, but a blend that worked for them. "I've been thinking," Kalara said as they sat beneath the purple leaves of a Viridian shade tree. "Perhaps we should share our story with other species. Many might be living under similar restrictions they believe are biological necessities." "The Kalara Liberation Movement," Jack suggested with a smile. "Spreading relationship freedom across the galaxy." "I was thinking more of the Human-Viridian Cultural Exchange Program," Kalara replied. "Less dramatic, more diplomatic." Lisa laughed. "Whatever we call it, I'm in." Captain Taylor found them there later, bringing news that the Confederation Council had approved funding for their proposed exchange program. They were impressed by how peacefully Viridia managed its cultural transformation, she explained. "They believe other species could benefit from your experience." That evening, Kalara addressed a class of young Viridians at the capital's education center. These children would grow up knowing the full range of possibilities for their lives. "Before I met humans," she told them, "I believed I could only ever love one person. I believed this was written in my biology, unchangeable as the color of my blood. What I learned was that hearts, even alien ones, cannot be confined by rules made by others. The capacity to love is perhaps the most flexible part of any sentient being." She looked at Jack and Lisa, who stood at the back of the room, and felt her hearts fill with joy. Sometimes the most profound freedom is simply the freedom to discover who you truly are.